Nonprofit and philanthropic leaders devote their lives to the service of others, but sometimes they need a little help. Kristine Michie has been deep in the work and the play of helping changemakers grow their impact for decades. So whether you're ladling soup at a local shelter or attending a UN peace conference, you need to find the balance between the heavy work and a light touch so you don't burn out. And Kristine believes play is at the center of that. Welcome to the PlayFull Podcast, bringing fun to the serious work of changing the world.
Well, folks, welcome back to the Playful Podcast. And today, with 8 badass women, we're kicking off the Brave Voices series of the Playful Podcast. I met these gals about 5-6 weeks ago in Oxford, England, when we were all at a conference together. And we named ourselves and so proclaimed that we're a bunch of badass women. And I think you'll hear evidence of that on the call today. So I'm never sure about the FCC or whoever pays attention to if someone says ass on a podcast, but I think I'm good. So feel free to, the podcast folks will take it out if we weren't supposed to say it, but go for it. All right, so welcome. I'm going to start with Fatima. If you would, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're sitting in the world, what you're working on, and most importantly, what ice cream flavor you chose or prefer or will have next.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Fatima Goss-Graves. I'm president and CEO at the National Women's Law Center. And right now I'm in Washington, D.C., which is where I both live and work. And it is a beautiful day here today, which is not always the case in this town. My work is the work of gender justice. And right now I am somewhat recovering from a testimony I had before Congress last week. That was on that very question around how we fight and support all women and girls in this country. My favorite ice cream, and there's a new ice cream shop that just opened in my neighborhood, which is the best thing or the worst thing, depending on who you ask. But my favorite is like old-fashioned pralines and cream with like the nuts and the caramel and all the good stuff.
Fatima, my first job was at Baskin Robbins, and I remember specifically using the little taster spoon to dig out those praline out of the car. I think I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but I'm remembering that very vividly. Thank you, Fatima. And I remember last week seeing your post in advance of and following your testimony. And thank you for your work on all of our behalf. And thank you for letting us join you in that recovery today and supporting
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Fatima, will you pick one of these other lovely ladies to go next?
Well, I choose Julia.
Well, that's a hard act to follow, Fatima, but thank you. So I'm Julia Roig. I'm the Chief Network Weaver at the Horizons Project. And something that we're working on very intensely right now is convening kind of a big tent formation of actors who need to be thinking about how we fight authoritarianism, but across many lines of difference, including ideological differences. So we've been convening faith leaders and veterans groups and labor unions and progressive groups and also conservative organizations. And it's been a facilitation challenge of a lifetime to bring these groups together and to find common cause. But it's something that we feel very proud of and got a lot of momentum around most recently. So it's been going well. And my favorite coffee that I will say at this time of day, because I'm also in Washington, D.C., so it's, almost lunchtime, I've got my Taharka ice cream that was delivered. And so I've got coffee ice cream with espresso chocolate chips. I would never be able to eat this after dinner. I would not sleep all night long, but I can have it at lunchtime. So I'm looking forward to digging in before noon. And I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Wonderful. I'm Rachel Brown. I'm the founder and executive director of Over Zero. And our work really is on understanding the various factors that drive societies towards identity-based violence and other types of political violence and supporting leaders, all different types of leaders in pushing back. And that really is the core of our work, is understanding that we all have a say in what happens in our society and helping people, informal leaders, formal leaders, leaders from all sectors, understand the roles that they do play, whether it's through doing nothing or taking action, and the roles that they can play, really to build resilience and to prevent this type of violence from happening. I am in New York, which is sunny and beautiful, and I am watching the wind move leaves on the tree outside my window and all the patterns they're making. And I am very excited to dig into my mint chocolate cookie ice cream. It's a Ben and Jerry's flavor that was delivered here this morning. Thank you, Kristine. And I I have to say there's something really extra delightful to me about eating ice cream before noon, which is growing up, my parents were kind of like health food freaks, and we always only got to eat healthy things. And one year when we were kids for April Fools, they said, "We're having ice cream for breakfast." And we said, "You're not going to get us. That's an April Fool's trick." And then it was kind of like a double April Fool's, and we did have ice cream for breakfast. And it's been an April Fool's tradition in my family ever since. So it's extra special to be doing this with all of you. And I feel like it makes me feel really happy. And I'll pass to Ina.
I had a feeling it was going to be my turn next. All right. Hi, my name's Ina Brewer. I'm the executive director of Need Global, which is a donor network, philanthropists here in the United States that are giving internationally. And what we do is essentially provide opportunities for these donors to learn from each other, and to learn about what the important issues are in philanthropy, be it global health, education, or polarization and everything that's going on in the world today. The goal really is to have these philanthropists be better and more intentional in their philanthropy. And I'm sitting in my yard, finally, after so many days of rain, and I am digging into my honey graham ice cream, also from Taharia. And we had a lot of fun with the dry ice after it arrived. Thank you. But thank you so much. I think I'm going to pass it on to Jennifer in Mexico.
Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Carolyn King. I wear three hats. I'm an entrepreneur, an investor, and a philanthropist. As an entrepreneur, I'm the CEO of Rugged Elegance, building the soulful network of social impact leaders, leveraging AI in a powerful new way. Very excited about that. As an investor, I'm building with my husband and partner of over 40 years, the Butterfly Effect Fund. And we're focused today, after sharing our beautiful home in San Francisco, offering a place to purpose. We call it a day to breathe. We now have a portfolio of women leaders in whom we're investing. We're focused on mental health and resilience, and in Africa, rising changemakers, both for-profit and nonprofit stars, focus on founders. And when I wear my philanthropy hat, I'm the president of the Rugged Elegance Foundation. Our mission is to inspire healthy, adventuresome, soulful living and philanthropic giving. When we identify organizations and people who inspire healthy and adventuresome and soulful, we say they has magic. And we're focused on 8 of the 17 SDGs: racial equity, gender equity, health and well-being, peace, education, climate, and collaboration. I have the privilege of being in Mexico today, having been on a women's leadership retreat where we had the beautiful gift of seeing a blue whale and her baby right before Mother's Day. That was quite profound. And then my children came from New York City along with my husband. And so we've been celebrating 2 birthdays and Mother's Day here in Mexico. But I split my time between Kennebunkport, Maine, an Africa-inspired soul sanctuary, and our home in San Francisco. In terms of ice creams, growing up in Menlo Park, California, I have fond memories of my mom in her little red convertible with the top down, kids up in the back, no seatbelts, of course, because we were up in the back, and we would go to Edie's Ice Cream in Palo Alto, and I would get the marble fudge and mint chip. That was my gig. In Maine, it's black raspberry and coffee ice cream. So yes, and I'm drinking a Diet Coke this morning. So in here in Mexico, as we prepare to leave, a favorite. Thank you for having me. Such a joy.
Yes.
And I would love to, Emma, would you share with us?
Hi, thank you. Wow, what a power group of women. My name is Emma Columbranda. I am, as you can hear by the accent, Australian and Swiss and British, and with South African parents, and I'm living in France. And I am managing director at a global non-profit consulting firm called Spring Impact. We help nonprofits to scale their impact. We help them to design and test and execute scale strategies so that they can make meaningful impact relative to the size of the problem. In the US, we've worked with nonprofits like Candid and Planned Parenthood and Girl Trek, and globally, we've worked with nonprofits like Myagro and Village Reach and Educate and Street Business School. And I mean, I think this work is more important than ever, right? The problems that we're working to tackle are only getting bigger. So we need to maintain our big ambitions and not turn away from that, even though we are working in a very difficult climate at the moment. Ice cream. I've actually got goat's ice cream. There's an organic goats farm down the road called Mademoiselle Chèvre. So I tried some goat's ice cream today, and it's kind of like earthier than cow's milk ice cream. But it's really creamy, and I would recommend for future.
Excellent. Yeah, Emma did let me know since she was going to be out of the country. And I don't know that Taharka yet has international delivery capability. She said, I'm going to track something down in the neighborhood. So well done on the goat ice cream. That's a first on the podcast.
Oh, there we go. Quite niche. And lactose free, apparently. So there we go.
Thank you, goats. All right. I think Neelan and Sandy, right? Still to go. All right, Neelan.
Hello. It is like really wonderful to be here, but one of the things that I'm truly enjoying about this is that we sat in a room together and had a conversation, and I only know these women by their determination and what they will not give up on and what they hope for in the future. And I actually had no idea what people did. And so this is a pretty impressive introduction to other facets of who you are. So I'm Neelan Parker. I'm the executive director of Common Ground USA, which is part of Search for Common Ground, which is the world's largest fully dedicated peacebuilding organization. So most of the work we do is in countries recovering from war, and that's also my background. But I focus entirely on the United States and on trying to, or at least the way I share this with my kids, is I try to take people who do not get along and help them solve problems together. I have the great good fortune of working often with Rachel Brown on preventing political violence, because that is one of the manifestations of when we don't work together, what the alternative ends up being. And I am eating Taharka's green mint chip, which is absolutely delicious. And it reminds me, I have two favorite ice creams. This is one, and the other is peach ice cream, but only if I'm making it with my grandmother. So of the bought variety, you cannot get better than green mint chip. And it reminds me of my summers in Texas with my extended family. And I am going to let Sandy bring us home.
Man, how do you follow this crowd? This has been an amazing introduction. It's so nice to see you all. And thank you, Kristine, for bringing us all together. I'm Sandy Hers. I have been a leader in philanthropy for the last 20 years, and I've been working as a recovering investment banker to try and make the world a better place for the last 30 or so years. And and largely with an eye towards sort of what's working in the world and how do we move towards a better way forward than the one that we are currently in. And so I've ended up engaging very deeply around storytelling and social change and how we tell the stories of what's working and how we get people to have the moral imagination and see the possibilities of where we can go and not be stuck where we are. So I don't currently have an organization per se that I am responsible for, although I was a leader both at the Skoll Foundation and at Sobrato Philanthropies. But I've decided to take this time to write a Substack called The Elephant and the Butterfly, where I've talked to 100 people across my network and I've been sharing out what I learned from those conversations for the benefit, I hope, of everyone. And so that's my current focus. I am in Menlo Park, California, where it unexpectedly rained today, so all our cushions are wet outside. And it is, 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm having a cup of Joe for my ice cream. Which is, I thought, the perfect thing for 9 o'clock in the morning if you're going to have ice cream. And I love the April 1st ice cream story. So I am totally having my April Fool's Day moment here.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. I also know a little bit about each of you and more now, and knowing that we broke bread together once before, and I don't know if you break ice cream, but we're having ice cream together now, and I'm sharing those memories as well. I just to give my shout out, I'm having salted honey graham, and this is when their flavors are kind of new and they're testing them. They don't have the full packaging yet, so this is if you've had the graham, this is like that, but with salted caramel ice cream. Amazing. So ladies, this time and that we're in, and I already heard themes of this throughout your introductions and you're sharing with us what you're working on. What's called for now in my sense and my experience so far is not that different than what has been always been called for by us change makers, but more. And then maybe for me, I'm like noticing dials, needing to change dials a little bit more of this, a little bit less of this. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is about, and this is a typical Playful Podcast question, which is, what's something playful you've done lately? And most specifically, if you found that in a crunchy, cumbersome, to get my alliteration there, moment, did you find bringing play in or playfulness as a good method to bridge build, for example? I'm thinking about what many of you have said you spend your time on. And, the idea for the podcast and the ice cream part of it was, what's a third thing? I talked to a lot of people early in the podcast and God, man, we thought things were, kind of divided then. And it's kind of taken on different layers and nuance since then. But it was like, it will just go binary. If you're, progressive or you're conservative, but you like French bulldogs, maybe we can talk about that, right? If you're this or you're that, but you like to go sailing, right? So it was this journey to try and find a third thing. And I found that ice cream is like a pretty good universal third thing. And so that has been a bridge builder for me. So I'm going to start, I'm going to ask Julia, this network that you're bringing together that you've got momentum on, congratulations. Have you found playfulness to be a strategic offering that's keeping the group together or bringing them together?
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking about playfulness when you're in a mixed group. Like we had a lot of former military in the space that we brought together, or, pretty buttoned up faith leaders, and then, immigrant rights groups from Oklahoma. So when you're in a diverse group who maybe feels like what the work is shouldn't feel playful because this is serious work and we should be around, a table, and like even taking the table away and just having, groups sit in a circle with no tables feels, vulnerable in the beginning. So we actually usually don't start there. There's a table the first day, second day, there's not a table. One of the playful things that we do immediately is we use metaphors a lot. And so I've used this twice now and it's worked really well. So we talk about a big tent formation, like we're coming together under a big tent. This is a very unsatisfactory metaphor. because we can't all fit within a big tent. It kind of flattens everybody into like, okay, but it's raining. We all need to like protect each other. So the very first question for the group as we're all getting to know each other is like, introduce yourself, where you're from, and can you help us come up with a different metaphor for why we're here? And wow, people came up with, no, you can imagine what the metaphors were. We're a potluck, it's a music festival, it's a garden. But the way that people like use a different side of their brain for the metaphor of being here. And then I'll just give one more example. I was just at at a conference with communicators who are more on the progressive side of the equation, who are really talking a lot about countering the current narratives. Like we were countering toxic narratives of othering and dehumanization, but a lot of, identity-based countering. And I used pictures, just a whole bunch. If you've ever seen the creative leadership, actually it's for women's creative leadership. They have a whole series of postcards. And I said, pick a picture that is a metaphor of what you think we're trying to counter. And so people would pick a picture of, I don't know, like a statue of a man on a horse, going into battle. And we're trying to, but it's just a different way of like, people like get to use a different side of their brain. And then we somehow can have a different conversation about what we're doing together as a group.
Thank you so much for that. I love that idea of taking a kind of a truism or a metaphor that we're also familiar with and asking people to maybe pull it apart and put it back together with some different words to get at that. It's a fresh look. Fatima, were you able to be at all playful during your testimony?
I during the testimony, I was probably very, very intense. But afterwards, I will say that once you have like a little bit of perspective from it, you start realizing how ridiculous the forum is. And I found a lot of humor in it, even though it was a forum that and for those who don't know, I testified before the DOGE subcommittee from the oversight committee. So theoretically, this is the committee that is supposed to be looking at what DOGE is doing and providing oversight. Instead, it was a hearing about trans women and girls in fencing, like uh, you know, the sport with the swords, not like fences that you build. In any event, uh, the forum itself was kind of ridiculous, but some of the behavior from some of the members of Congress was also ridiculous. Literally, at one point, one was like bouncing up and down in her seat. And if I was like not myself and having to focus on responding to the questions, but someone who was sitting next to me, maybe who had just sort of been dropped into uh, this world, you would be like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
There is something that's a level of ridiculous. And it is either tear provoking or humorous in order to like let you make it through. But the thing that was the most playful thing that I did this week, honestly, over the last week, was live watch the Met Gala red carpet with my mom, my sisters, and my mom's best friend and her daughter. And that was actually the best. It was so much fun, and the fashion was so outrageous, and it was like black dandy, and brought me a lot of joy.
Oh, I love that. Ladies, I do find with my female changemaker friends, I try and intersperse the inconsequential as often as possible. Like, hey, oh yeah, but just a minute, tell me about that lipstick, right? Oh, tell me that, oh, I just got a blow dry. Like, like let's like, and I want to bring in that question, like, when does that take bravery and courage, and how, I think we're all we've got to have an ear for, there could be a really bad time to suggest that. But I think as we build community and spirit with each other, Fatima, listening, watching dresses and hair and jewelry and silliness like that is a fantastic salve, right? For kind of the moment. I'd like, Sandy, would you talk a little bit about bravery and play? When does it take bravery to be a little more playful?
So, the work of sort of social change and trying to make the world a better place, and some of the countering authoritarian narratives type of work that Julia was talking about, this is serious, heavy, difficult work, that can be really hard on folks um, to do, and which is very much part of people's identities, can be their actual identities or their work identities, but it's very much a part of their lived experience. And so it's hard to bring play in, and at the same time you have to bring play in, you have to bring joy in, you have to, one of the things that I talk about a bit in my Substack is the making the world you want to see right now, not waiting until we get there, because it may take a little while to get there, but actually living the joy and having the experience right now, and the importance of building that into the work. But it's the work of the group to do that. It's hard to bring it as one person. And I think for me, I so believe this. And I also believe, like, even at the level of sort of teams within organizations, you want to have fun together as a group. That's never been sort of my strength. I'm not the class clown. I'm not going to sort of have the funniest joke in the room. I'm a little bit more serious, but I always make sure there are people on the team who naturally do that and who bring that for the group. And so I don't know that that's bravery per se, but it is sort of important to recognize and push past what may be my own sort of natural inclination to be more serious, in order to bring the play, in order to bring the fun, in order to bring the joy, so that we can do this work and do it for a long time, and bring our best selves to the work.
There's the conversation I think that you're all contributing to, and that we're probably all seeing in shared social around self-care at this time. It seems to be really resonant, and not and so play as a form of self-care. Um, let's if you would, like, who's got something that took, who just straight up, maybe it wasn't playful, but just took a lot of bravery, that you did lately. And I don't know about you all, but I've been poised at my keyboard a few times, thinking that I'm afraid, or wondering if I should post something or say something, and thinking, and this is America, and I'm afraid that someone's going to read this and I'm going to get, like, in trouble, like, and then, like, going for it, right? There's been these little moments of word bravery, I'll call it. Anybody an example they want to share there? Neelan, you're sort of nodding like you've had some of that going on.
Yes, I am. This is yes. Um, so there are lots of different things that take bravery. Anytime that I think you put your heart outside of your body, there's a bit of bravery involved in that. But what I was thinking about when you asked that question, was that I recently felt strongly that I didn't have the answer. And the question that I was asking is really pretty central to the work I do, which is, what are the steps we can take for the transformation of our country, its politics, and our people, towards the direction of our all thriving? And how do we really get there? Not in a kind of like, I want us to all hold hands and be okay way, but in a very concrete, tactical, and strategic way of what are those steps. And I feel that I have some of the answers, but I was feeling very strongly that I didn't have all of the answers. And it was a very hard thing for me to feel, because I believe that I have worked in war, come from Appalachia. These two things come together for me to be able to have answers and to share those. And I did a number of things, but one of the things that I did is uh, I normally work a lot and I work through my kids' um, school breaks often. And this time I took a couple of days off and I went to Iceland with just one of my kids. And I had many incredible experiences, but one of them was the visual of the earth living and the way that humanity has to be resilient to that. And and it rewired my brain, and it meant that I woke up with a sort of different aperture, and I was thinking in different ways, and I was asking different questions, and I was coming to different answers. And when you are standing in front of a wall and you just keep beating your head against the wall, you will not notice that there is a doorway 3 feet to your right. And so you have to step back to be able to see those possibilities. Now, I don't think that I have all the answers today, but I do actually feel like I have many more or many more avenues that are open than I did in that moment before.
Whoa, talk about a great metaphor, the door right here. Fantastic. Thank you. Ina, I saw that you've got something to share on that came to mind.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, the current situation in the United States, and I live in Boston, and we've had recently quite a few ice raids in different areas in Boston. And the other morning, I actually witnessed an ice raid,
Oh.
and I was driving by, and it was just like a traffic jam, and then actually saw the ICE officers, and there were like about 15 of them, and they were, realized, it took a second, like, oh, what is happening? And then you see these Schwarzenegger-like figures that look just like in the video we all saw when Rumesa got arrested, and like was sort of driving by. And I got home and I was like, oh, I should have stopped. I should have, taken a photo. Or, I mean, I was really disturbed because you sort of hear about it and then you see it. And I'm originally from Germany, so I was like, Gestapo, oh my God, is this going to become normal? What do I do? And I was sort of feeling not brave enough because I hadn't stopped. But it really brought home to me how important it is for us all to be brave at this moment and to speak up. So, I mean, we're trying with our donor community to really underline that importance among funders by, sharing international examples and just helping to educate folks on what's happening and what they can do at key moments. But I think we all have to be brave at this moment and do more.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you going through that. I have not witnessed that with my own eyes. I don't want to say yet, but yet. And that you shared that that kind of helps me start preparing for some of the thought process you had as you encountered it and as you reflected on it, which is a gift. So thank you for carrying that. Rachel, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, there's a few strands coming together for me, and I'm hoping they'll actually come together as I begin to speak because my mind is in a few directions. But building, from what you were just saying, I think it's important that we ask the question of what does it take to be brave, right? There's an individual bravery, but I love what someone said earlier of it has to come from the collective, right? Creativity comes from the collective as well. And how do we create the conditions for bravery? I think that this is a question that in this moment requires so much creativity. And I think creativity is only possible by getting away from banging our head against the wall, getting perspective, having different experiences, accessing play, because what play does is it takes away the rules, right? It lets us suspend the rules of the reality that we're in. It lets us use different parts of our mind and feel into the possible, but expand our sense of what might be possible. And I think that in a moment where it's very easy to get into the trap of just counter, 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 that means we're playing by a script that's been set. And I think that the play and creativity, what it enables us to do is build our own script. And I think that one of the core elements has to be, what are the conditions for bravery? Because having studied and worked in looking at preventing violence, genocide, mass atrocity over the last 15 years, I think one of the biggest lessons is it's very hard to do as an individual. And in these contexts where you have the worst case scenarios, there are always, always individual acts of bravery. But for them to add up, there has to be the collective, because it's very scary. As human beings, we are really wired to belong. We're wired to, and we need to belong to feel survival. And so it's actually experienced as the idea of being ostracized or excluded. We process that like physical pain. It's very scary. It's very threatening. And so when we move into conditions where doing things that might be morally right become very scary in that way, and you face not just maybe consequences of to your own physical safety and security, your family, but also even just the social settings you might feel like you belong in or can be part of, we have to think creatively about how to build spaces of belonging and spaces of community and togetherness that enable the level and type of bravery that we need right now.
I love that. Conditions for that support bravery, spark bravery, fantastic. I think, I don't know how many of you I've shared this with, or if I did and we were all together in a group, but when I walked the Camino de Santiago last fall and I was walking those old stones, right? And Julia just came back having done the walk as well. And it was before the election, and I was walking along thinking about all the epics that had passed as people had walked that path over the centuries. And then I started thinking of all the tyrants who had, and the kings and the emperors and the wars and the generals, and all the peacemakers and the connectors and the change makers and the angels and the heroines. And I thought, well, every epic needs all these roles filled. I mean, we don't need some of those, but we know that those other ones are going to be filled. But like, what's our role? What's my role? And I hear a lot of that here. What's my bravery role? What's my courage role? And how do we bolster each other in that? Jennifer, I know you are, with your work, building places and spaces for people to do some of the inner work that then I think can create outer transformation. And you're also building a community of people who've had that experience. Love to hear how this is resonating for you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, so coast to coast, our home in San Francisco and in Kennebunkport, Maine, have become places to purpose for leaders, for change-making leaders. And we give them a day to breathe. It's just devastating to hear that you're witness to this kind of atrocity. And so our focus is supporting leaders in their journey to get clear on their purpose and be focused on themselves, because we can only control ourselves, right? And so we use the metaphor of the hurricane. The hurricane is all around us. It's chaotic. But if we can get ourselves into the eye of the hurricane where it is calm, and we can connect with our heart space and connect with divine guidance, then we can be purposeful and we can be meaningful and we can be impactful in the world. So we serve people of all faiths and no faith. And nature is a powerful, powerful way for us to get in that place of calm and of clarity, where nature can be incredible in providing us signs from above. I take it as signs from above. And so it's a beautiful way for us to support entrepreneurs, especially today, in getting them clear, calm. We do a release ceremony. Who and what do you need to let go of in your life? Write it down and then put it into the fire and let it go. And while we can't afford to be able to provide a day to breathe to all change makers, every one of us can take moments to breathe and moments, to get clear, and moments of release. And in Maine, one of my favorite memories is we live by the tide behind our, I call it the bush because we're an African-inspired home, but it's a forest. And we have a river that flows all the way out to downriver and out to the ocean. And it's been such joy getting either on our paddleboard or kayak with leaders and really testing their bravery. Beautiful woman, Zippo, who studied at Stanford Business School, who's from South Africa. She had never been in a kayak before. And it was the scary moment of her life. And it was one of these profound moments. It was playful, but it was scary. And by virtue of that simple gesture of, okay, I'm going to get in this kayak, I'm going to give this a ride, she'll probably tell that story of bravery. So I think focusing on ourselves, just focus on that which we can control, is really a powerful way for us to manage all the chaos around us.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And I think, and I'm seeing in the chat, and I'd love, and we'll put them in the show notes. I see that, there's some actual tactics and suggested practices for those who witness and come upon, for example, a raid like that. We'll share those in the show notes as well. And then I love, Julia, you've got a metaphor in there. Speaking of metaphors, you talked about, if a tug of war is just pulling on opposite sides, you can just drop the rope, right? And stop the fighting and maybe turn to each other and do something else, or maybe even convince the other side to also drop the rope. I mean, it's not much of a game if you drop the rope, right? Then they're just standing there with the rope. What game can you play? Great metaphor. I got to show you guys, this is those that are just listening, but see this is a picture of me with a baby chick. And this came about, I got to have a day of purpose, as Jennifer was describing, and there was a guided meditation that we did, and a baby chick came into my image, into my mind, and I came to understand that it represents the part of me that I need to protect to be able to continue to do this work. And at the moment, it was right after the inauguration, and I was thinking how I would never put a little baby chick in front of like the TV or the radio, and I wouldn't like yell headlines at it, right? I would keep her far away from that. So that part of me. So then like 2 weeks later, and this is just how the universe works, I bump into an old friend, like one of my kid who's 28, his high school friend's dad. I see him at the market, and he's like, and I've never even been to this guy's house. He's like, you got to come over. We just got baby chicks. So I went because like I had to go have this experience with this baby chick. And so this is in my journal now. So ladies, we're going to wrap up here. I would love to I want to make sure everybody has a chance to do a call to action. It can be a call to play, a call to bravery, a call to action, a call to strategy. But the folks that are listening, the audience of this podcast is folks like us. And I'm proud to call us and call them us. So I'm going to ask for that, and, try and be quick-ish, but don't miss anything you absolutely want to say that we all should hear. And I'm going to start with Neelan.
One thing that I often tell people is what you voted for is not what they voted against, or the inverse of that. What you voted against is not what they voted for. And it's a reminder to all of us that we have depth of identities that go to places where we can find values that we share. And so my call to action is to seek those opportunities to reach people with curiosity and love that would not be necessarily obvious by the one identity that feels farthest from you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Neelan. Ina.
Boy, I don't know how to beat that, Neelan. That was profound. I think I'm missing nuance, and similar to what Neelan said, I'm really wanting people to think beyond their usual importance. Like, one of the things I'm hearing a lot lately from people is like, we have to like really stand for our values right now. And while I agree that that's important, it also feels like it's reinforcing polarization in some ways. And so I feel like we need to think beyond ourselves. We have to sort of be open and creative in how we talk to each other and find ways, to talk to people who we don't typically talk to more. And sometimes it's, in your family. Have that difficult conversation.
Thank you, Ina. Fatima.
I think you could have a whole conversation of what it looks like to stick to your values and invite people into conversation. But my call to action is actually to tune in. In times of strife and discourse, it is really easy to sort of say, I'm going to tune out. This is not my problem. This is somebody else's. Um, and that's the last thing that we need. We need everyone to tune in, even when it's hard.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sandy.
So I am caught in this space between sort of the resistance and the possibility. And so what I would say is narratives of hope and possibility are their own form of resistance, that we need to stand against what is wrong and be brave, but we need to also hold the space for what's possible and what we can move toward together, and not lose sight of that, because if we lose sight of what is possible and our optimism and the things that can unite us, then they've won.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Sandy, looking at Rachel.
Okay.
Rachel, thank you.
I think my call to action would be something that's dual, reflect and gather. I think that it's a moment of a lot of overwhelm, and that's intentional. It's a lot going on. It's like the drinking out of a fire hose, and it can be really disorienting. And I think taking a moment to reflect and write for yourself, who am I? What are my values? How do I want to show up in this moment? What's my perception of what's normal? How is that different from 5 years ago? Can I look back at this in a year or 3 months and see what's maybe changed? All of these are things that we can get very knocked off kilter. So rooting in yourself, and who am I? Who do I reach? Who listens to me? Right? What type of reach and engagement do I have in my life? So a level of reflection to actually situate and root yourself in this moment, and then gather. This is a moment where isolation is a really big risk, and the ability to gather and gather people in a way that they feel that sense of belonging and being part of something, and it is rooted in value and rooted in open conversation, feels really important, and it's what's going to enable that bravery and that action. So reflect and gather.
Reflect and gather. Wonderful. Jennifer.
My call is the call to pause. There is power in pausing. In fact, we're creating a movement called the necessary pause. We as leaders, we're always in our headspace. We're driving and driving and driving. And if we can get out of our head and into our heart and connect more clearly with divine guidance, we're going to be more impactful, powerful leaders. We have an exercise that I encourage you all to do every day. Get a journal out and write down, ask yourself, what did you do today? And write it down. What did you do today? And then close your eyes and put your hand on your heart and ask your heart, what did you do today? And see how much different the answer might be. And I think if we can live more in our heart spaces and connect with divine guidance, that it's going to move the needle in a very powerful way.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to go Julia, and then we're going to wrap up with Emma.
Yeah, I feel like complimenting what all of the beautiful things that people have said is that my call to action is get ready to feel uncomfortable. Like we need to step into discomfort and disruption and actions that are actually going to shake up complacency. And I believe in everything that everyone just said. And I think we are on a trajectory that with this yes, we need to build the beautiful future and we need to block the harms that are happening. That blocking is going to become more and more disruptive. And we don't all have to be in that space, but it's going to happen. And I don't want us to criticize those who are in more of a disruptive resistance stance, because I actually feel like that's what's going to get us through this next phase. So it might feel uncomfortable to some of us because of where we are in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that idea of all the different roles that all of us are filling, we may feel different roles at different times, right? That whole who steps forward at a certain point, who steps back, and collectively doing all that. Okay, Emma.
So my call to action is that we have to continue to think big and have an abundancy mindset, not a scarcity mindset. And I'm seeing a lot of organizations in our sector in the US and globally who are withdrawing. They're looking inwards. They're going back to strategic planning, thinking about what is in my control to change. And yes, we have to adapt, but now is not the time to contract. We have to keep our ambition because the problems are getting bigger. So I am telling nonprofit leaders to keep those BHAGs, those North Stars, those 10X visions, those big bets, whatever you want to call them, and not to back down.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to real quick, I just took some notes. Hope, possibility, abundant mindset, open, loving, selfless, tune in, reflect, pause, step into discomfort. I remember being at a conference in the summer of last year, and it felt like the progressive people, like I just remember sitting there, why do we always have to be the nice ones? We were all talking about how we were going to reach across the aisle and we were going to be really open. I was like, but here's what I think because that's what works. I think that's ultimately what works. The love, the hope, the possibility. That is how we tune in, lean in, reflect, get into discomfort. So I'm gonna stick with that. You ladies, thank you so much for being part of this. I know we're going to be together again in lots of different forms and fashions in different places all over the world and virtually. And your work is significant, and I'm blessed to know you, and we're blessed to be in community. Let's go do some more of the good. Thank you, everybody, for being part of the Playful Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yay. All right, gals, real quick before you sign up, we're going to run this episode that first Thursday in June, which I think might be the 5th. You'll get social assets prior to that, but they'll only include your photo and bio if you send those to me. So if you'd send me in the email your photo and bio, we'll put together all the graphics. Doug will also do some cool video clips, and we'll have those out to you so that you can use, and we can. Oh, and if would you please, you guys, I'm so bad at asking this. Please follow the podcast. And then if you're even so would indulge, rate and review to just try and build the engagement. I have, thousands of, and hopefully tens of thousands of listeners. And I think I have 31 reviews at the moment. So I'm really trying to get that going. So thank you. It's not intuitive and you have to stay a little bit longer, but I know you will, and I'll appreciate it. Okay. Doug, did you need anything from the group?
No, I think that was a great, no disruptions in the backgrounds. Everybody was great. Thank you so much, ladies.
Could I just say one thing again, which was that I had the experience the first time we got together, and I had it again today, that there was something necessary in the collective, that each one of us had a call to action, and all of those were good and fine and actually insufficient without the others. And so thank you for bringing us together.
Yeah, you bet. Count on it. There'll be more of this. Thank you all. Out into your spheres of influence and impact today. Blessings. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the Playful Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you know of a leader or organization that's doing good in the world and you'd love to help us help them amplify their message, I would love to have them on the show. Go to the show notes and click there, or go to impactfulinc.com/contact. And that's impactful with 2 L's, inc.com/contact. And let us know who you're thinking about. Can't wait to see you next time.